I think we're live. Yep.
Live,
All
live,
right.
live.
We are live. So there we go.
This is Will's show. He's running it today.
This is very casual. This was like a last minute idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically our little broadcast today is just to welcome everybody to our new podcast. Woo!
Yeah.
Yay!
And I thought up a bunch of awkward questions to ask you guys.
I tried to talk him out of this. Here's how it went this morning. I said, "Hey, Will, you know how I hardly ever ask you to do anything?" He's like, "Yeah, what do you want?" And I said, why don't we just do a quick 5-minute video? You just do a quick 5-minute video on YouTube telling your YouTube people about the new podcast." And he turned that into, let's do a live thing where I ask you awkward questions.
Well, otherwise it's boring, right?
I guess it depends. What kind of awkward questions are we getting?
Well, no, I came up with these.
We should play two truths and a lie.
Yeah, we should do that. But before we do, I just want to show everybody our little magic trick. So Jake's going to look up and catch this.
Hey.
And then
I'm going to throw it to you, Lee. You
throw it to
ready?
Lee.
Yeah, throw it. Oh!
I think it came back on my camera.
That's awesome.
So
Here, it's coming back.
So we are on my YouTube channel right now.
The scale got out of whack.
So we wanted to be able to do something live, and so we just decided to do it on my YouTube channel here. So for those of you who are joining us, who are regular watchers of mine, I also wanted to kind of address like what is going to happen to my YouTube channel since we're starting this podcast. The answer is nothing. I'm not going anywhere. I've already set the precedent of not posting regularly, so I have a very low standard to live up to.
Nice.
And I will keep making videos because I love making videos. But why are we doing this podcast? In fact, I have an awkward question. Number one, does the world need another art podcast?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
I want to hear what Lee says first, though. I'm just kidding.
We don't need a new podcast.
No. So here's the question. Here's the answer, I guess, is I love podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts for years. They're the perfect thing to like have on while you're drawing, while you put in those hours of drawing alone in your studio. And so I've also been on 20, 30 podcasts as an interview, like people interviewing me. And I've always loved the idea. I always wanted to do it. And before I decided to get us up and rolling on this podcast, the 3-Point Perspective podcast, I went and did some research and just went to look for what other podcasts are there about illustration. And there was just a handful, and they were pretty specific to certain markets. And many of them were done. Like they did their 20 episodes and then called it quits. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot of fresh podcast content out there, and I thought, well, let's just do this.
Yep. I'd add to that it's I think the reason this one's going to be good is because every podcast that I have listened to, the interviewer and the other people that are on there, the group of people that do it, seem to agree a lot. And we agree sometimes, but the whole point of this one is for us to do stuff where we have differing opinions and we kind of talk out those points. And I have not heard a single podcast, illustration or otherwise, that really dives into that, where they say, no, I think what you're saying is not right, and here's why I think that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's so important because a lot of the decisions that we make as artists are so subjective that if you don't hear both sides of it, you're not really sure if you're getting the whole picture, right?
The other thing too is all three of us are working professional illustrators who have come to it by 3 completely different ways. You know, like for example, Will, super untalented, no hope to ever do this.
Against the odds kind of story.
Way against the odds.
He's like the
can't believe
Rudy of illustration. Right?
he's the Rudy of
I-
illustration.
Hey, I'll take it any way I can get it.
I actually can't believe he's still doing it. But anyway,
Keep going. I like this.
no, but you've got Will, who did everything right, checked all the boxes. I want to be an illustrator. I'm going to go to study illustration in college. I'm going to do everything my teachers tell me, and it worked. But this was back in the 90s when the illustration world was completely different than it is now. And Will's seen everything change throughout the course of his career. And so he has that perspective of like, well, this is not how we did it back then. And I see how things change now. And throughout all those iterations of how the illustration world worked, he's thrived. Like he's been able to take advantage of market swings and understand all kinds of different things. It's just been cool to watch and learn from him. Lee, on the other hand, was 28, 29 when he woke up one morning and I don't know, something weird was in his cereal, and he's like, I want to be an illustrator.
It's true. I've never drawn anything before, ever. I mean, ever. No sketchbook, no nothing.
So you have him, and he's like, well, how do I even do this? And he ends up miraculously getting into Art Center, one of the hardest schools to get into. And he gets into it and totally kicks butt in Art Center, and then goes on to have an illustration career after that. And then you have me, who I have always wanted to be an illustrator, even from little. And then for whatever reason, me and school didn't match up. So a lot of the way that I've learned how to be a professional illustrator is just learning from other illustrators around me. I went to school for just a couple semesters before I dropped out and took on work in the animation industry and sort of came into illustration through that avenue, through the back door of animation, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to point out something else really quick, and that is that Lee is you're not on your equipment right now. So just because I'm assuming that Jake and I sound awesome and that you sound horrible right now.
It's probably true. I probably sound like I'm in a tin can or something.
I was thinking like a steel
I'm on my
can.
laptop. So we're moving right now. And this is a little side note that I just found out, even just while we're sitting here on the podcast. So I'm sitting here in this little office nook in my house because all of our stuff is put away. I don't know where my mic is, or my real computer's taken down. And I'm up in this little office nook. And while we've been sitting here, there's a couple of drawers over here, and I opened them up, and it's all my good missing pencils. I think my son has been grabbing them. I mean, there's a ton of them. And I've been looking for these things forever. And I think every time I set them down, like on the table, he has been hiding them in here. There's like 200 pencils in here. And I like good pencils.
He's like, Daddy keeps leaving his pencils out. I'm going to put them in his pencil drawer.
Well, what's funny is I was like, I'm going crazy because I know I left the pencil there. And then I go buy another one because I can't find it. And I mean, I've bought the same one like 15 times.
That's a children's book idea right there.
Actually, let me ask you that really quick. Do you guys, when you find something that you really like, do you go and buy like 20 of them as far as like art supplies?
They always stop making them, or they'll change how they make them. And so I do.
Yeah. One thing I wish I would have done when I first started working in animation, they had these amazing blue animation pencils that were made by Sanford, and I forget what the actual name of the pencil was, but the ingredients that they put in, whatever the recipe was for that pencil lead, was just like divine. The way that mark went on the paper, and they stopped making them. What was it? Prismacolor ended up buying it and branding it and put out their version of it, and it was just a little bit off, a little bit different. And I so wish that I just stockpiled 1,000 boxes of those pencils, and I'm straight I didn't do that.
There was a charcoal pencil manufacturer when I was in school called Ritmo, and they had a dialed-in formula, same thing. And word on the street had it that they were going to sell. They were closing, and then another big company was going to buy them. And so I bought like 20 boxes.
Nice.
Had them all through school and even for a couple of years after that. And then I got down to that last box and I'm like, oh no, it's my magic pencil. So that was the last time I drew the figure. Like I just
nope, all done.
I bought extra cartridge ink for my laser printer, and then the laser printer died.
There you go.
So you're just sitting on these boxes of cartridge ink.
And you can't throw them out. They're too expensive to throw out. You just like sit on them.
Right. Hey, by the way, you guys that have joined us live, thank you for joining in. I also want to say that I will have links at the bottom of this video once we're done with this broadcast to get to our podcast so you can download it. Next awkward question is this is for you and Lee, for you, Jake and Lee.
Not for yourself.
Just
no, this is me asking you guys awkward questions.
Okay.
Have people ever attributed your genius to a drawing that you made, but the concept was an accident?
What
That happened to
do
you
you
just
mean?
a
What
few
do you
weeks
mean?
ago,
A concept
Jake.
was an accident?
Yeah.
That's why I asked you this.
No. I'm about to tell my experience from a couple of weeks ago. I just didn't want to steamroll over Lee.
No, go ahead.
So I hadn't drawn anything in my sketchbook for a while because I'd been working on my graphic novel, and all of my drawing time was going into the graphic novel. Finally, I had like a window to just draw whatever I wanted in my sketchbook. And so I sat down, and whenever I'm at a loss for ideas, my default is draw a robot. And so usually the assignment I give myself when I draw a robot is figure out some design element that can like override the roboticness of it and make it an interesting looking robot. So for this particular one, I drew a ball inside inside a shell holding the ball, and put arms and legs on it, and just drew it all technical and everything, right? And I was done with that, and I thought, okay, cool drawing. A couple days later, I wanted to test out these new markers I had gotten, or I'd received. I don't know if gotten's a word. And the pack that I had was natural colors, and it was a series of greens and a couple of browns, and it was like colors of nature. And so I colored the ball in brown, and then I colored the rest of the robot green. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This works. For some reason, this really is working. It's like kind of an interesting color scheme. And I posted it online, and immediately what people started saying was, that is such a cool avocado bot. So the ball was like the pit of the avocado, and the shell around it was like the meat of the avocado with like arms and legs. And everybody kept posting like avocado emojis on it. And I had no idea. Like, I was like, yes, it is an avocado robot. I came up with that all by myself.
And so they could see that on your Instagram right now, right?
Oh yeah. You can go on my Instagram, look back a couple weeks, and find the avocado bot.
What's your Instagram?
At Jake Parker.
Okay. And I'll have links on the video when it's done to where you can find Lee and Jake. Okay, next question. Oh,
I had one that I did that on, and
go ahead.
It just speaks to, you always want to give credit where credit is due. Mm-hmm. And so David Hones, an illustrator, awesome illustrator, who I shared a studio with him for years, and he did this awesome Little Red Riding Hood, and he had this concept of this wolf looking out from a tree, and it was pure David Hones style, like his own style. And he's got his very established style. And I liked it a lot. And I said, hey, do you mind if I do a version of that? And he's like, no, I mean, we've shared stuff a lot like that. He'd draw on my images, I'd draw on his images and stuff. And so I did mine, and then I posted it. And then all of a sudden my print sales started going through the roof on that one. I sold tons of them. And David's just watching my ticker like ding, ding, oh, $50, oh, $50. And it was all him. And yet I couldn't give him credit on the piece. Like, I stole this from David Hones. But the whole time, anytime when I posted it, I said, this was an image by David Hones. I copied, the whole thing was him, like the wolf looking around the tree, where Little Red Riding Hood was. I just changed the style. And now it's my image. I mean, people like, talk about it and ask me about it years later. They still talk about it now, and now I don't mention David anymore. I just claim it as mine.
It's all yours. No, what's interesting about that is you might have really good ideas, and I'm talking to you,
The broad you.
the broad you, everybody listening. You might have really good ideas. It's just the access to the right people or to the right, just that right alchemy of people's attention and what people are needing. So I know a lot of times, like I come up with something which I think is just awesome. I post it online and it's crickets. And then sometimes I do something that I just think is like dumb and it's the best thing I've ever posted. And so I don't, some days I think I know the answer to how to do that. And then some days I'm just like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
How do you
Okay.
make something go viral?
So a follow-up to that is the audience right or are you right?
You were right.
I think the audience is right.
What? Say it to my face.
I'm
No,
saying
I
it to
think-
your face. The audience is right because it's how people you make a piece of work, whether it is a concept for a book or whatever image, but you make it, and the second you post it somewhere or it's up in a gallery or whatever, the second people can see it, it is now not yours anymore. It's their experience, and they bring what they do to it, and it's valid whatever they do. Sometimes I've done a piece that I think is really happy, and they're like, "Oh, it's so melancholy and sad," and I'm like, "No, it's not. It's happy." But I don't see
But what if you hate it? What if you hate the fact that everybody responded so well to it?
I don't care what people respond. I mean, I don't anymore. I don't care. Like once I'm done and I put it out there, I don't take any ownership of it.
I
Okay,
guess what I'm
so-
asking, but what I'm asking is,
Can I make my counter argument?
yeah, go ahead.
Go,
3-point perspective.
I just don't want it to go on another tangent before I make my
No,
counter.
go ahead.
Okay. So maybe the audience is right in how it's received. Like, in the end, art isn't completely, it's always subjective, right? But I feel like you have to go into every piece thinking you're right, not thinking, I hope the audience is right on this.
Very true.
So,
Right.
so maybe in actuality, it has, the audience ultimately decides what it is, or the viewership or whatever it is, but you cannot create art that way. And I just read this. If you read in National Geographic this month, there's a piece on Picasso. And one of the things that it said was he never took on commissions, or if he did, it was very rare. Instead, he just drew what he pleased, painted whatever he wanted, and he expected everybody to appreciate it. And some people can take or leave Picasso, but it was a strategy that really worked for him because he went into everything thinking, this is the thing I want to create right now, and I feel like the world needs this right now.
Right.
Interesting. John Earth Dragon asked a question that kind of relates to this. How do you handle backseat drivers on commissions? And I think it kind of speaks right to this, is that you have an artistic vision, and then you have a client or you have an audience. And if you're doing something for yourself on Instagram, you're trying to, I mean, none of us are creating art and hoping that people don't like it. We're all hoping that they do, right? And so there's a certain amount of, I'd say, pandering that we probably all do subconsciously. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, you want people to like it for sure.
Right. You want people to like it. And so that affects a lot of your decisions. And I guess where I was going before is that as an artist, though, you have your vision, and you're using everything. You're bringing everything that you've ever learned to the table and saying, I think this will make it the best. And then sometimes they don't like it. And in this case, what he's asking is, what if your client is constantly trying to nudge you or grab your hands and paint or draw for you? And I mean, that's the plight of the artist, right? I mean, like, that is the
when it's successful, when it's really working well, the client trusts the artist, and the artist also trusts the client. And so for me, when it's worked great, is they know what I'm capable of doing. They hired me because they saw my work and they're expecting that what I do is what they're going to get. So unlike the thing you told us before we started recording, I don't know if we want to get into the specifics, but Lee was asked they asked Lee if he was interested in doing a project that is like completely opposite of the style that he is known for, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that would ever work. So it all starts with, does a client want you or picked you because of your style, or did they pick you because you're a warm body that knows how to move a pencil around, and they're going to basically make you do the thing that they want to do? And so once you've cleared that out of the way, if you're picked because they like your style, then there needs to be trust on their part that you're going to bring something to it that maybe surprises them, but is still within what they want. And also, when you, if this is like a big job, you're going to be delivering sketches along the way and work in progress every once in a while, just to make sure you're on the right track with what they're wanting. And they'll give you a little bit of guidance as needed. But if it's a situation where they're practically holding your hand and saying, no, draw like this, I would get out of there ASAP and spend your time doing other stuff.
Well, that speaks to a huge point that not a lot of recent grads think about, or even early pros, is that you've got just as much right to say no as they do to ask you to do something. And like what Jake's talking about, this project I was offered, if I would have taken it, it would have been a struggle the whole time, because I don't do work like that. And no matter how much they like my style, it would be a struggle for me. I could see it coming a mile away. And so I just immediately, I didn't even go down the road. I didn't even ask about the budget or anything. I just said, nope, that's not for me. And I went the other way. And I think too many times people are like, well, I'm doing this like Dungeons and Dragons style, this World of Warcraft style. And then they get asked to do something really sweet or something. It's totally opposite, same kind of scenario. And then they take it on, and then they just struggle and butt heads the whole time. So picking the right project is really important. And then the second part of that is knowing how to navigate clients. I never just submit artwork, say, here's the sketches for your project, I hope you like it. I mean, when I submit a pitch for a project, it is really specific, and I've detailed out, here's some decisions I made, and here's why I made those decisions, and here's how I think it helps the narrative that we're trying to sell. And then they're like, oh, cool, I didn't think about any of that. And then now they have ammunition to go fight for my design, instead of just saying, oh, it's cool, here's what he did, and then everybody weighs in on that.
Right.
So I've learned how to get things accepted and fight my battles.
So what about the person that's sitting at home listening right now and going, well, Lee, the thing is, you are doing awesome, and you can afford to turn down that book project, but I have to take everything that comes in, else I cease to be a freelance illustrator.
That means you have a bad business plan. You have to be able to say no. If you're in a position where you have to say yes, you are in trouble. In my opinion, I would say, go do something else and do an illustration on the side until that's enough, gets rolling enough where you've got that luxury. Because if you have to take it, you're in trouble. And
to be totally transparent, I was the guy who took a lot of projects that I shouldn't have early on. And I really looked up to my friend Brett Hellquist, and I've talked about him a lot on this channel. He's the guy that illustrated this series of unfortunate events. He did more what you're talking about, Lee. If it wasn't for him, he would turn it down. And I just felt he had so much integrity to be able to do that. But I was like, but then I will worry about, being able to pay the bills. And I was kind of caught in between, because I didn't really have anything else like another job. And I have advised some of my students to, that have good jobs that are not art related, is stay with that job and do the illustration on the side until you start developing the client base that's asking you to do the type of work that you want to do, instead of, I just jumped right in and started taking anything and everything that came my way. And I think it slowed down my career because of it, so I think that's good advice. Okay. Are you afraid to draw a hand in front of a live audience?
Absolutely.
Do you worry about getting the thumb on the wrong side?
I don't get the thumb on the wrong side. I just mangle all the fingers. I'll draw a broken hand.
Jake, this is not a question for you, Jake. You don't get to answer this one.
Can I just say
nope.
one thing? Okay.
I'll say this, that most people have learned at some point they're good at characters and drawing a human anatomy, and then they learn to draw hands. I went the other way, where I learned how to draw really well human anatomy and portraits and stuff, and then I made my work more naive to fit the hand that I couldn't draw. So now all my work is basically to the level of my hands.
That's hilarious. Actually, what I was going to say was I drew the greatest hand I've ever drawn today. I'm just really proud of it.
Can you show it on camera?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Well, we're gonna judge this thing.
Oh, there you go. Just put it up there. Yeah,
look at that. Look at that hand.
That's a nice blurry hand.
Yeah, I know it's blurry, but you get the point.
How are you drawing so pixelated? It's like an 8-bit kind of thing you got going there.
The last, I don't know, 20 hands that I've drawn though have not been like up to par. They've been just enough to get the job done. But that one, I felt like, oh, good job, Jake.
Have you seen the Bern Hogarth? I'm sure you have the Bern Hogarth drawing hands book, where
dynamic hands,
where the hands have like little muscles. Like they all, like each joint has its own bicep muscle.
Yes. No, I was way into that book in high school. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, everybody was. Everybody liked that.
The hands were like, super
Harrison Ford
stretched out.
They're all muscular fingers, man. I've never seen somebody with such muscular fingers as on the Bern Hogarth book.
Right.
Okay, I got 2 more questions. Mm-hmm. The next one is, how are you weird? In other words, tell us something about yourself that nobody in the art world would probably know about you.
Go ahead. Do you know what you're going to say?
I need to formulate a little bit better, so you go first.
I have I don't know if I'd call it OCD, because in a way it's good. I'll give you a little example and you can tell me what it is. And because this happened just this past week, my stairs, I'm getting ready to sell my house. This is last Thursday. I'm going up my stairs, just like with some laundry or something like normal. And there's a squeak. And I step back on the step and squeak, squeak, squeak. And by fast forward 2 hours later, I had ripped out my entire stairwell.
I was hoping you would talk about that.
To nothing. I mean, I'm not talking about just the tread. I'm talking there's nothing there. It's just basically an incline.
So he's sending us these pictures. Let's see. Right here.
Okay.
Right. Look at
that. those little pieces in there aren't even the ones that I use. Like they're called stringers, the little thing that the stairs attach to. And I've never built stairs, by the way. I'm not a master craftsman. I rip out all the stairs and then I'm like, oh no. I remember one moment I'm sitting at the bottom of the stairs looking up, and I got all these tools around me and no idea what to do. And if you use this as an analogy, I have done this over and over my whole life, whether it's art related or house related or everything. I mean, that's just how I tend to just like dive in way too far. And then, I mean, a lot of times I figure it out, but it gets me in just some bizarre situations for sure.
Wow.
I love it. All right, Jake.
I like to make up little songs and I sing them just about the situations around me.
Oh my God, you have to let us hear one of these songs. Go.
What would be it? Okay. I can't believe I'm going to do this. This is dumb.
Yes.
You did turn this into awkward. Okay.
I told you.
Here we are talking about the podcast. We're not talking slow. We're talking fast. I just do stuff like that all the time.
Jake actually opened for Eminem last year on tour. That's his rap battle cadence.
Oh, can we turn this off now? Stop?
Jake, I think you're blushing. I think Jake is actually blushing. His face is turning red.
That's good stuff. Okay. Something about me really quick. I am, and this isn't that weird, but I'm OCD when it comes to trips. Whenever we go like camping or on a trip or anything, and I will make lists months. I'll just work on it on my phone. Like whenever if I get an idea, and it drives me nuts that my family won't get into that at all. So like I've done like the bulk of the work, and then I'm asking them, prepping them ahead of time. That's like on my list is like, see if you can get your family to get their crap together, you know, and they never do. And so like, we're trying to make the plane or we're trying to get out in the car, and yeah,
Your travel has become quite elaborate.
I love it.
I will say that. You bought a trailer, right? That wasn't a rental last time.
Yeah,
You
no, we
bought
got the trailer. So yeah,
Living
love
the
camping.
dream.
Yep.
That is living the dream. Do you ever do illustration when you're on these trips?
It's so new. It's such a new thing. I take my iPad and draw. So
Do you draw what you see? Do you ever do landscape stuff, or is it always illustration?
no, and I should.
Why are you not doing that?
I will. How about that? I will.
You live in a place where you could do cool stuff. Like I live in
know.
Oregon, and sometimes I go camping and I bring my sketchbook and I look out, and it's literally a wall of green, and I'm like, I'm not drawing that. there's no form at all. It's just bush like green.
Just bring one paint can of
Like
green
slop it.
and a big house brush.
But you
Okay.
man, you got the rocks. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Last question.
Thank
Could you
goodness.
imagine a scenario where your drawing skills could save lives?
Yes. If I drew a sign that said, "Watch out, cliff ahead."
I don't know. I guess it depends on the content that you're writing. All three of us are writers. If we write the one story that they read as a kid and then they become a teenager and they're having a really tough time and then they remember the story, whatever thing that we wrote, that could be the one thing they hold on to, because whether it's that's always my goal when I'm writing books now, is I want someone to have that moment where later on somebody says, "Oh, what was your favorite book as a kid?" They're like, "Oh," people talk like Harry Potter like that now. They're like, "Oh, I love the Harry Potter series."
Yeah.
Because it's old enough now. But I want that to hopefully be my book. And then that could have the potential to later either shape someone's life or maybe save it depending on the content.
Wow. So you do have a heart.
No, Lisa wrote that answer for me. I was just reading that. Our real answer is no. Illustration doesn't save anyone.
That was good. That was really sweet. I kind of go along with what Lee said. Like outside of, public awareness signs, like loose lips sink ships or something like that. It would be to create something that someone turns to in time of need or in time of sadness or sorrow or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go to the serious side along with you guys, you never know the little things you do as an artist. And this goes for everybody who shares their art with the world. You really never know what kind of impact you have on other people. And sometimes the difference between someone even just taking their life or deciding not to could be those small interactions that we have.
Go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a physical life. It could be a metaphorical, you could save someone's life instead of, not following their dreams. They have artistic ability, but they don't know if they can do anything with it. They look to you and see, oh, if they can do it, if they can make it work, maybe I can make it work, and I can use my illustrations to provide a living for myself. Maybe that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, and whether it saves a life or not, can I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
So all three of us do art fairs of different capacities and Comic Cons and things. And I already told Jake and Will this story, but I'll tell you guys this story now. So last year I was at this art fair in Anacortes, Washington, and right at the end of the day, I got these 2 print bins, and right at the end of the day, this woman comes up and it's the fair's thinning out. And I was just surprised somebody's still in my booth, and she's flipping through prints and like normal. And I go do my little spiel. Oh, let me know if I can help you, and she just like sitting there looking at this print. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, cool, I'll get one more sale. And she's just staring down that print. And I was like, yeah, you got any questions about that one? And she just turned to me and started crying. And she said she had a twin sister who had passed away when she was little. And the picture that she was holding that I had done was this girl swinging in this big tree. And there was a big tree and a swing right outside their window. They shared a room. And her sister was always on that swing. And when she saw that image, it hit her like a ton of bricks. It just brought her right back to that moment in her youth. And she turned and gave me this great big hug. And then I just gave her the painting. I mean, I gave her the print, and she was just bawling. And it was just this connection. And it was more powerful than any other interaction, or the money and the sales and all that, and the trouble of getting up there and setting up this big booth. And, and I was like, it just hit me as I was driving home. I mean, I was tearing up too. And I was just like, that is what we do this for. And that was the power. And it was profound. And then it changed everything I think about illustration.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
That's awesome. And that is a really good note to finish on. Hey, you guys, we love doing these kinds of broadcasts, and we've just really found a good chemistry with each other. And this is the kind of stuff that we'll be doing, and that we've already recorded 7 episodes, and we're going to be releasing them, I think, every other week. Kind of really committing to a schedule. I don't think we have an actual date yet, but
our first episode drops on Monday. So yeah. So if you like the kind of stuff that we talk about, you're interested in illustration, check out 3 Point Perspective, the podcast or the illustration podcast, I think is our subtitle. And you could just search for it on iTunes. You could search for it on Google Play if you use an Android, or you can go to svslearn.com/3 Point Perspective. And you can listen to the episodes. The first one's on Monday. The week we launch, we're going to launch 3 episodes that week, and then we're going to shift to our bi-weekly schedule. But it's been a ton of fun. I'm glad we're doing it. I love the discussions that we have, the talks that we have. So yeah,
it's good stuff. Well, thanks a lot, you guys, and thanks for the comments. I've been trying to respond to some of them and still pay attention, and that's a difficult thing to do. And somebody was saying they love to listen to the live session. I think that was Lisa. But unfortunately, the podcast isn't kind of interactive like this. But who knows? Maybe I'll talk you guys into doing these sometimes too.
Sure.
We'll figure it out.
I just want to remind everybody, Lee's not going to sound like he's in a tin can. We got good equipment. We actually found a guy who edits professionally to edit these, and they sound amazing. I'm so surprised. Like, that was the thing that scared me off in the beginning, is I'd listen to professionally recorded podcasts and think, well, it must be really hard to get set up to do that. And it's actually not, but we did have to find the right people. And so I think we've done pretty good there. So really looking forward to it. And do you guys have anything else you want to add?
No, I think it's going to be fun.
Okay. You can find us in the descriptions below. I'll have links to the podcast, and thanks for joining us. And I'll see you guys back here on my YouTube channel, hopefully. And if not, hopefully you'll be downloading the podcast. Bye, everybody.
See ya.